So, you're ready to buy your first pair of inline skates. That's absolutely awesome. Welcome to the club. I'm Casper. I spent 4 years working in a skate shop and I will help you through everything today. For convenience, I have divided this video into chapters, so you can always find the part of the video that you need the most in case you need to come back to something. Let's get started. Now, the first decision you need to make is whether you need a hard boot or a soft boot. Hard boots like this one is usually used in something called urban skating. They're solid enough to allow you to make jumps and deal with bumps and scrapes a lot better than their soft boot counterpart. Just take it easy. I'm not expecting you to get a boot like this and go out and do jumps right away. There is a reason why I brought it into a beginner video. Because the thing is, if you're a beginner skater, chances are your ankles aren't that strong. I know mine weren't, and they actually struggled to stay upright when I first got into a soft boot. If your ankles do this too, then it might actually be worth going for a hard boot just for the added support on the inside that will help keep your legs in an upright position. I tried to skate my first marathon in soft boots, and let me tell you, my ankles were killing me. That's not to say that soft boot aren't a good option. They're definitely a lot more comfortable than hard boots initially, and they're a lot easier to get in and out of, which will make a difference for some people, as if it's too difficult or too cumbersome, they might just end up on the shelf, and we don't want that. Hard boots are also more responsive and will give you a much better feeling of control. There's nothing wrong with choosing a soft boot though. Now, there are also some skates like this one. Now, there are also some skates like this one that bridge the gap between the soft boot and the hard boot. It's called the swell. It has a lot more plastic running through it, but still has a soft upper. Think of your ankles. If you're completely collapsing in these, consider going for a hard boot like this. So you've picked out the type of skate you want to go for. Now let's talk about how they should fit. This is by far the most important part of the video, so pay attention here. Don't make the mistake of comparing skates to regular shoes. I've seen way too many people go in and shop skates with that approach that their skate should fit like the shoes they're wearing. Please don't be that person. Inline skate, as a rule of thumb, should have a pretty tight fit. I actually had to downsize my Next in order to have a snug enough fit. The way the skate should fit is that your heel should be completely locked in place, unable to move, and your toes should ideally be touching. And don't be alarmed if your toes initially curl up a bit when you get into the skate. Just stand up in them and lean forward. That should put pressure back on your heel and alleviate the pressure from the toes and help them lay flat. There really shouldn't be any room for your foot to move. If your foot can move, and you are not the one in control the entire time. So think ski boot when you're thinking about skate fit. And if you feel any specific pressure points or anywhere that's causing you pain, then it might not be the size that's the issue. It might actually just be the type of skate. All skates are molded differently, so just try a different pair in the same size and see what happens. If you're feeling some amount of pain in hard boots, soft boots might be the way forward. Because the upper is very flexible, there isn't as much hard material to cause any pressure points. So yeah, if you're struggling with multiple hard boots, then it might be worth looking at a soft boot. Also keep in mind that you have to break your skates in, so if the fit is not perfect right away, these liners are designed to mold to your foot as you're using them. So don't be alarmed if they don't fit perfectly right away, and just have a little bit of patience with them. They'll get there. So to sum up, some discomfort is okay, pain is not okay. Now we get to the least important thing for first-time buyers: the wheels, the bearings, and the frames. My most general piece of advice would be to pick the skate based on the boot and not the wheels. To skate the ones you have and then replace them when it's time to replace them. But now that you're here, let me take you through the ins and outs of the hardware that comes with your skates. There are two things that you have to worry about as a beginner: size and hardness. That came out so wrong. Bigger wheels also deal better with rougher surfaces. So there, as a beginner, you might actually have an advantage with a bigger wheel size. However, of course, there's always a but to this. Smaller wheels, like on this one, are still very, very good for beginners. They also give you a lower center of gravity. As you can see, the frame on this versus the frame on that is a bit lower. So yeah, this will help you stay low to the ground and feel like you have more control of your skate. So smaller wheels could be a really good solution if you just need to build your confidence initially. Wheels also come in different hardnesses. The hardness is usually a number followed by the letter A. Most inline skate wheels will lie somewhere between 80A to 88A. Softer wheels are generally more grippy and vibrate less than harder wheels. However, they do wear out much quicker. That doesn't mean that harder is worse. Harder wheels do wear significantly slower and are usually associated with the bigger wheel sizes where the surface is actually less of an issue. For bearings, honestly, keep it simple. Skate the ones that are in, replace them when they no longer roll. And especially as a beginner, they're far more important things than bearings. And full disclosure, if you want to nerd into bearings, it gets super technical and really, really nerdy. Finally, we get to the frames. They're not super important, but they're not completely unimportant either. I'm about to glance over a couple of really important details here, so allow me to address them before some of our more seasoned viewers completely roast me in the comments for forgetting. But first, allow me to get a couple of skates for you guys. Longer frames are generally more stable and will stay more stable at high speeds, but they're also less susceptible to inputs, which means that they can be harder to control. Shorter frames, on the other hand, give you a larger degree of control over your skates, but at the same time, short frames are also very lively and very reactive, which means that they might not feel as stable for beginners. The second question is that of 3 wheels versus 4 wheels, and I need another pair of skates for that one. A 3-wheel skate like this allows us to get the comfort and speed benefits of a 100mm wheel, package it in a similar length to a 4-wheeled setup, just so you don't end up with a monster frame like this, because this is kind of crazy if you're not a speed skater. So that's essentially the only difference between the two. There's also something with maneuverability because your skate can pivot around the center wheel, but honestly, you're not going to feel that all that much as a beginner. So to sum up this segment really quick, longer frames are more stable, shorter frames are more maneuverable. Tri-skates allow us to put bigger wheels on shorter frames and is not necessarily a bad option for a beginner. And we now return to your regularly scheduled programming. There are several different types of frames depending on the brand and the price. The most common are usually unibody, riveted 165mm, and then here at Powerslide we also have the Trinity mount, which I will get to in a minute. Riveted skates and unibody don't come off because the frame itself is directly integrated with the boot, so there you cannot change it. Unibody is usually made for kid skates because it allows for a plastic frame, which is significantly more affordable, and riveted frames are also more affordable to make and will be able to keep the final product a lot more affordable. You can of course still change the wheels on both, but you are stuck with the same wheel size for all eternity. Into eternity. 165 frames are detachable with 2 mounting points at 165mm apart. This is one of the most common frame systems and allows you to change out the frame and keep the boot. This is really nice if you found a boot that you really like and would like to skate a different wheel size. Then you can just buy a frame, the wheels, and the bearings, and then you can skate a new setup on the same boot. Finally, there's Trinity, and that's actually featured on all 3 skates I brought for you today. Trinity is a 3-point mounting system. It has a bolt here, here, and here, and will basically allow you to switch frames to whatever other boot that is also Trinity mount you might want. So all these 3 skates have interchangeable frames. I could take the frame from this one and put onto this one, no problem. These are just the basics. If you feel like dipping your toes in, there is a lot more content out there. And if you made it through the entire video, then I salute you. I'll link to a playlist with some beginner tips and tricks so you can get rolling right away.